Alright, so this is Ryan, and he's had about 2 minutes to think about the question, what do you think happens after this life? So, what's your initial reaction to that? We'll go from there.
I believe in an afterlife. I believe, me personally, because of my spiritual beliefs and my faith beliefs, I believe that there's a heaven and a hell. Because I'm a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, I think that I know that I'm going to heaven. But I think that, but I also believe that those who don't go to hell.
Yeah.
Those are my beliefs. I think it's pretty, as far as that's concerned, that's black and white.
Yeah.
I think that the afterlife is an eternity. I believe in a judgment. Basically, I believe everything that I've read in the scriptures. Like what happens when you die, you know, what will happen, like, as far as, like, the afterlife and the apocalypse is concerned. I don't believe in reincarnation.
Right.
Do I believe in, do I believe in, like, spirits and, like, even paranormal activity? I don't know. I mean, that, for me, is still up in the air.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical, I'm cynical about it, but as far as you returning solely for the purpose of revisiting or haunting this place, I kind of lean towards no on that. But I think what I mentioned prior, or I should say, I know what I mentioned prior is true. It's like hardcore. Like, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, other than that, like, I don't really have any.
Now, have you believed as a Christian? You'll be a Christian then, right? All your life? Were you born and raised in a, like a church-going family, that kind of thing, or what did you come? How did that? And I think most people, were you grew up in a church?
Mm-hmm.
So was there a time when you kind of took ownership of your faith? I mean, that's in the growing process. You kind of like get away from what the parents believe, and maybe not get away from it, but you have to decide: is this for me? Did
Right.
it happen for you, or?
Right. Yeah. I was born and raised in church, and I was born and raised a Christian, raised in a Christian family, Christian home. I guess like when in high school or like, my teenage years, I did sort of reflect. I did sort of like introspect on myself, did some introspection, and I sort of like speculated, what I actually believe. And I mean, I never really deviated too much. But I think I just needed, just like everyone does, like you need time to like make it your own, It can't be because it's your parents, or it can't be because it's your friends, it can't be because it's, whatever have you.
Yeah.
And, that's what I did, and I came to the conclusion, thankfully, that's my faith, that's what I want to believe.
Was there Paul on the road to Damascus experience, or kind of gradually grew into faith, or how did that happen?
No, I would say that it was just more of like I just pulled back, like, and when I say pull back, I don't even mean like. I think what I really questioned was untruths that I had been taught in various demographics within the Christian faith. It wasn't so much that like I was questioning or like wondering if Christianity was for me. It was more or less that I was questioning like things that I'd heard from people, or had been taught from people, in church or whatever have
So
you.
more of the organized religion aspect of it than
Right.
just the actual theology.
Right. That's really what I get, or what, even now, that's what I get frustrated with. Like, because, you can read the Bible, and which I do, and, and obviously you learn things from reading it, but at the same time, like, it is up to people, teachers, to sort of like interpret it to you, to break it down, and so like it becomes easy for it to be abridged or watered down or diluted or whatever have you, and like that's really what frustrates me. You know, it's not the Bible, because like you can become unsure about something that the Bible is saying, and then when you go and you ask someone, it's like, well, this is it. And it's like, well, you find out either if you don't realize it's misinterpretation or a twist, then you may find out later, and yeah, it can become disheartening. It can become disheartening. So I think that's really where not my doubt, but my reflection lies, was in that facet of it.
Now, are you actively involved in church?
I'm not at the moment.
New in the area or anything like that?
Yeah, I've been in Chicago for a year now. I'm from outside of Philadelphia. So yeah, I would say I'm fairly new. I guess if you consider a year new.
Have you visited any churches? Or?
I haven't yet. Oh no, I take that back. I have visited one since I've been here. But other than that one, no.
Any reason for that, or particular?
Not really. I don't know.
Like before you moved here, were you involved in a church then?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, a family church, or?
Yeah, my family did go to that church. Yes.
Yeah, that's probably. So you're probably not used to the whole idea of going out and finding a new church, because you've been going to your family church all your life, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, like, I have been to various churches, but, like, yeah, the concept is a bit new for me, yeah. What
would you, if you were to go and visit some different churches with the idea that you want to, become involved in one, what would you be looking for? Like, what would be your criteria?
I guess an accepting congregation, one that's not judgmental, or non-judgmental, I should say. And I guess just, I don't know, like, I want to be given, like, an enlightening approach, or an enlightening perspective, like, not something that, like, necessarily fabricates or, like, creates its own doctrine or whatever have you, but something that just sort of like makes me think, makes me contemplate, something that kind
maybe challenges you a little bit, or
and something that like just gives me like a fresh outlook, something that like gives me unabridged truth, but at the same time like says look at it from this angle, look at it from this perspective, and one that's just like open to, because I've been in churches where they've claimed to be open to, where they claim to be like non-judgmental, or like where they've kind of debunked a lot of like traditional myths regarding Christianity, things like that, and and that's fine, but at the same time, like I felt that they were a bit hypocritical, because they were highly judgmental in a lot of different other aspects, and I guess like those really are the major, primary factors.
Do you feel like you have I don't know, do you work around here then?
I work downtown, actually.
Downtown?
Yeah.
Do you, I don't know the reason I ask about work. I'm wondering, do you have like a overall purpose in life? I don't know if it involves work or, whatever you do, or, like, what would you say is your purpose for existence? Believing in God and being a Christian and all that, considered. What would be your purpose in life?
I've done a lot of introspection, and like I keep coming back to the idea that I'm meant to make music. In fact, that's why I moved here. I've wanted to be a music star since I was, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, since I was like 9.
Particular genre?
I would say like I love classical music and jazz, but I would say probably now like rock, like I like a lot of I'd say the rock music, but
are you active with that, or
I was in a band before I left when I was in Pennsylvania, you know, and I've played some open mics and things like that because I also like folk music, you know, like I've done the singer-songwriter thing, you know, like recently, like I formed a band. We've been inactive lately, unfortunately, due to like uncontrollable circumstances, things like that. But yeah, so I moved here, you know, to sort of like procure those ambitions and things like that.
I don't know if they still do. They used to have an open mic here.
Yeah,
and I did it once.
Oh, did you?
Play guitar, you know. And
oh, okay.
I'll never do it again.
right.
There was something in me that I just felt like I want to do this.
Right.
And then when I did, it was like, okay, been there, done that. Now I'm moving on.
Right.
So, but well, that's interesting. Do you specialize in a certain instrument then, or something? Or?
I play guitar.
Oh, okay.
And I initially, like, when I was taking music lessons, like, I played piano. And then when I was about 15, 16, I started playing drums. I didn't start playing guitar until I was about 17.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably my primary instrument now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what drew me here to the city, or to Chicago, was that just that ambition, that dream. Yeah, but I feel like that's what I meant to do.
Now, if someone was to ask you, and I don't know, maybe you have been asked this, as if they found out that you were a Christian, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, say it's a coworker or even just someone in a coffee shop, and maybe they see you reading a Christian book or something, and they figure, oh, that's a Christian, and they come up to you and say, hey, I've been really thinking about this. I could die any day. How can I make sure I'll go to heaven? You know, what would you tell them? What would be your answer? It's kind of like, you know, like how would you formulate the gospel? You know, like
the gospel.
How would you explain that?
I believe, you know what? I do believe, you know, some of the churches that I was involved in prior, when I was in Pennsylvania, I did learn some good things. You know, you can learn something from any mistake or any bad experience. And one enlightening thing that I learned was that the gospel is believing who, for me, because this is my faith and my belief, the gospel is believing who Jesus is. You know that He's God. You know that He is God incarnate as a man. You know, and He died and He rose again. You know, and when I share the gospel, I tell someone that if you believe the gospel, which is that Jesus Christ is God, you know, that blah blah, however you want to put it, He's Messiah, you know, that He died and rose again, then you will be saved. You know, it's not that you go to church, it's not that you read the Bible. It's if you believe that, then you won't die and go to hell. You know, like, it's not that if you if you follow the 10 Commandments, it's not if you follow everything they said. It's just that's it. That's what He said. If you do not believe that I am He, you will die in your sins. Yeah. And that's what I would tell someone. Like, it's that simple. Yeah, I mean, that's...
I have to say, I do, you know, like, I try to share my faith often. Mm-hmm. And when a lot of people have the impression that, you know, like they'll tell me, why should I believe your beliefs? Why can't I believe mine? You know, why aren't mine good enough? And why would God send people to hell for not believing the right thing? That's kind of how they put it. Mm-hmm. For not believing the right thing, you know? Mm-hmm. So, you know, like, so kind of based on what you're saying, it's like, okay, if you believe these things about Jesus, He's the Son of God, and He died on the cross, and He was raised again, right? How would you answer someone who just says, well, why do I have to believe that? You know, why is that so important? You know, because I get that question all the time.
You know, I try not to, like, you know, the thing is that, like, sharing the gospel can be a very precarious scenario, because you don't want to get, answering some of the questions can be a bit tedious, but you don't want to, like, get into sort of like a debate about it, you know, because, like, it shouldn't be a matter of, like, who's right and who's wrong. It should be a matter of, like, someone becoming stumped, you know, like, you know.
Well, I mean, I've kind of like noticed there's two different kinds of questions, and it could be the same question, but it's asked two different ways. And one is they're trying to prove you wrong, like, well, what about this, you know? And so they're trying to find a way that, okay, well, so what you say is invalid because you can't answer this question. And then other people could ask the same exact question. Why, you know, like sincerely, and I really want to believe, but I have doubts, and so I'm wondering about this question, and so it's just like from two totally different viewpoints. See what I'm saying? And so the first one where they're trying to prove you wrong, yeah, you're going to get in a debate, and it's going to be a, you know, because they're not sincere. They don't really want to hear the answer anyway.
No,
you know?
no, and I don't even engage in that because like that's that person's. You know, you can't make someone believe what you believe,
right.
You know, and it's like if they're not really serious about it, then, you know, it's not something that they desire anyway. They don't want it anyway. But if someone is sincere about it, you know, I would say that, you know, I know that my God isn't a liar. You know, I'm strictly relaying to you the message that He gave to me.
Yeah.
You know, and the message that He gave to me and to all men is that He doesn't want anyone to perish.
Yeah.
And you know, if you believe that, you know, He is God, you know, He's the Son of God.
Yeah.
Then you won't die in your sins.
You know, the very common, you know, well-known verse is, you know, for God so loved the world that He gave His only Son. And it's funny that, you know, people hear that and then they say, so that whoever believes in Him will not perish, but have everlasting life. And so it's assuming that we're going to perish. And a lot of people just kind of like overlook that. It's like, you know, so why do you think? Maybe turning that same question around and saying, well, why do I have to believe in order to go to heaven? Why would people perish? You know, what do you think would be the reason that we're perishing in the first place?
I mean, well, again, tracing back the biblical timeline. I mean, one man ruined it for us all. So from now on, from dust we came, dust we will return, and from the minute we're born until we actually believe who He is, like that is our judgment. We're doomed to pay the penalty for the sin of mankind. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have to, you know, sort of reap this punishment that one man brought upon us.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the price. But the thing is that, you know, what's so amazing is that, you know, God paid the price for us. So if all we do is just believe this key fact, this key thing, then like we can use that to
That's what I find so incredible is, you know, the very people who complain, well, how could a good, loving God send people to hell? They forget the fact that this same good, loving God suffered on the cross in our place, you know? And so it's like, yeah, it is the whole idea of the punishment. Hell is a horrible thing, but it was also horrible for Jesus on the cross, you know, and what God sacrificed so that we wouldn't have to go to hell, you know. So, do you, as far as like the Ten Commandments, you said it's not about following the Ten Commandments or anything, but what do you think would be the place of the Ten Commandments for us as, you know, New Testament believers, you know? Because a lot of people I've heard say, well, the God of the Old Testament was wrathful and vengeful, and, you know, we had the Ten Commandments, and then Jesus came along and he's merciful and kind and all that sort of thing. So what's your...
because it's God's word, none of it can be invalid and none of it can be untrue. So they are still relevant to us. Granted, I think that a lot of times we sort of like use the word believer and like a follower, a disciple interchangeably, and that may not be the case. Like I said, you don't have to follow the Ten Commandments. You don't have to go to church. You don't have to read the Bible to be saved. The the gospel is what you believe to be saved. But if you choose to be a disciple, if you want to follow, if you want to learn, if you want to like actually grow closer and like get everything that you can from you know, God and His Word and that sort of thing, then I mean, obviously you're going to want to study the Bible, you're going to want to be in church, you're going to want to fellowship, that sort of thing. And I think that the Ten Commandments, I mean, they're pretty, it's the law, so it's like, you know,
Pretty
it's
straightforward.
It's black and white, you know, and I think that like it's one of the things that you just kind of, it's one of the things that you hold on to. I mean, it's one of the things that like, you know that if you violate, that it's sin, you know, it's like, so I mean, like, you know, the Old Testament, no, like I'm not going to, for me, like I'm not going to find myself studying a lot of the Old Testament, you know, living in the New Testament, but but like the Old Testament is still valid, you know, like, you know, because really like all the Bible kind of like points to who God is, who Jesus is. I mean, like, yeah, you'll see a lot of like genealogies, you'll see a lot of law, you'll see a lot of government, you'll see a lot of like forming of social structures and a lot of like bartering amongst tribes. These things like that you'll find in the Old Testament, and you'll see how God, how He was incorporating it and like how He promised this to that. But really, like, there's sort of like reflections of like even like the sacrificing of the lamb, things like that.
You learn a lot of good principles for how God operates.
Yeah, I mean, but you can. I'm sorry.
That's all right. One of the things that I have noticed, I mean, like Jesus, when He began His ministry, he was preceded by John the Baptist. And John the Baptist was really preaching the law and helping people to see their sin, you know. One of the things I've noticed is this whole idea, you know, like, again, John 3:16, God gave His Son so no one would perish. One of the things I've noticed is that very few people, less than 1% of the people that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot, actually think if they died today they would be perishing, you know. Now most people know that they're not perfect. I haven't met anyone who says I'm a perfect person, except for one lady who, right after she said she was perfect, was trying to sell me some stolen watches. but that was the only one, and I think she was, you know, she had some mental problems. But everybody, you know, like a lot of people, a lot of Christians were told to share. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Have you heard that verse? Yeah. And what I've discovered is that when people hear that, they think, oh, okay, well then I'm cool because, okay, yeah, I'm a sinner, but everybody else is too. So there's safety in numbers. God's not going to send everyone to hell, so it's all right, you know. And so there's that idea that, okay, well, Adam sinned way back then, but. And I sin once in a while, but I'm not guilty of it because it's his fault, you know? And I've actually had people tell me a lot, actually, it's God's fault. He made Adam that way, you know? And so I get that question. It's like, why should we be punished for what he did way back then? And so what I've really had to remind people of is when Adam and Eve sinned, they were given the knowledge of good and evil. And we all have that knowledge now. So we all have a conscience. So we have a God-given conscience of right and wrong. Now, the Ten Commandments and other, you know, the Bible helps us, like, pinpoint, you know, like, get more specific. But in general, we know when we're doing the wrong thing, you know?
Right, yeah.
And so there's nobody, even if they don't have any religious background, any Christian background, have never heard of the Ten Commandments, basically, according to the Bible, everybody has a knowledge of good and evil. They know better. You know, they know right from wrong. And we do the wrong thing anyway. So it's almost like when we lie or steal or use God's name in vain or do any of the things that the Ten Commandments says, we're basically like eating that forbidden fruit all over again. You know, we're Adam. You know, we're Eve. And so we're guilty. And so there's actually a verse in Galatians that says the law was put in place. It's referring to the Ten Commandments and the Old Testament law. It was put in place to lead us to Christ. So what I found, and this is what really helped me to start sharing my faith, was I found that it's not just a matter of telling people you need to believe in Jesus, that he died and rose again and all that. That's kind of like the good news, We also have to share the bad news, which is we know right from wrong, we've sinned, we're not in God's favor, we're basically condemned along with everyone else who sins, which is everybody. We are perishing, but there's a way to not perish. Faith in Jesus Christ. See what I'm saying? So it's like the law shows us our guilt and leads us to how we can be relieved of that guilt. Faith in Jesus. And because I used to want to share my faith before I really understood the purpose of the law, and I was trying to convince people they needed Jesus, and I was trying to convince them, not just like saying, well, that's what the Bible says, by using the Bible's authority, but I was also trying to convince them that, well, my life is so much better now that I have Jesus. I have peace, I have happiness, and almost trying to prove how happy I am as a Christian. And so therefore you should be happy too, have Jesus in your life. And people would be like, well, I'm pretty happy the way I am. Thank you very much, And so it wasn't until I started, I realized that the law is there for a reason. Like you said, the whole Bible it's all there for a reason. The law helps people to see their need for faith, or for Jesus, for what Jesus did on the cross. So that was real freeing for me. I'd encourage you, there are like certain churches aren't real good at teaching that. I'll be honest. Like we have, when we think about God, you have kind of like a double-edged sword. His goodness makes him very loving, but his goodness also makes him very just. And so there must be a just punishment for sin, which is what Jesus did. It's either the punishment of hell or what Jesus did on the cross. And so churches are real good about talking about God's love because, that's what puts the offering in the plate, to be honest, and keeps people coming back. Right. The hard message of the gospel is about God's justice and that there must be a punishment for sin. And that's what people don't really want to hear,
Well, I feel like it's one extreme or the other. I feel like there's never like that.
Yeah, there are churches that are very judgmental and negative, and
I feel like there's not like a balance, like a happy medium.
That's very true.
That good mix, like something that kind of like. It's always like tipping the scales. Like there's not like that perpendicular, like he's good, but at the same time the justice is there to like display his goodness.
And also what I've found is God's purpose is that he would be glorified and that he would show his attributes, right? So between love and justice, those are two attributes of God that are kind of contradictory. Like, in order to be loving of a sinner who's breaking his laws, he would kind of have to say, well, I'm not going to worry about what you did, because I want to love you so much, right? Or if he wants to be just and just give us the full wrath of, like his anger towards our sin, there would be no love there, And so there's I think a lot of Christians try to say, well, God is kind of loving, but he's also, he's going to punish sin or whatever, or like they try, but it turns out to be a God who's compromised in both camps, But it's only at the cross where God is able to completely 100% be 100% loving and 100% perfectly just at the same time, because he takes our punishment in our place, And so So it really has to be a church, for a church to find that balance. The cross and what happened at the cross, I think, needs to be like center stage, somehow, and of course being true to the Bible, but focusing on the cross and focusing on Jesus, rather than focusing on what are all the good things you can do to kind of please God and keep Him from being totally wrathful, or how loving, just the half presenting God as a compromised God. Without the cross, God would have to compromise both of His attributes for anyone to go to heaven.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Right. Yeah. I also think that you do get instances, or you do see how merciful God is, within passages of the Old Testament. You do see sort of a foreshadowing to what Jesus is going to do come the New Testament. Yeah. You do see a lot of compassion, and to me, that to me right then and there, in a book that really emphasizes God's justice, His wrath, that sort of thing. It makes it even more precious,
Yeah.
Makes it even more.
Well, the other thing about the whole idea of hell and all that, and all God's wrath. The interesting thing is, He really doesn't. The whole idea of hell really is not described at all, hardly, in the Old Testament. It's through Jesus, and so all the people that say, well, the God of the Old Testament is wrathful and horrible, it's just interesting to me that the one who is able to do something about hell, Jesus, is the one who teaches about it.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like God was being compassionate there too, as far as what would it be? What would it have been like to teach the ancient Israelites that when you die, you're going to suffer eternity in hell, and not have them have any way of knowing how they could avoid that,
Right.
So I think it's interesting that God does that the Bible does that.
Right. Yeah.
And, there are allusions to to hell, but it's not there's no clear teaching of it until the Gospels and Jesus. So I want to encourage you to go get involved in church. It's
definitely.
I don't know, I'm sure you have the understanding that church. We go to church. A lot of people don't want to go to church because they say, well, it's boring. I don't get anything out of it, right? But if we go to church with the idea that, hey, this is a place where God could really work through me in the lives of another believer, or I could be an encouragement to others and pray for them and minister to them while I'm learning some good sitting under some good teaching. Then church starts to be, I think, exciting. So for me, that's when church really became alive, was when I started to say, what can I contribute? What can I go there and contribute? And I'm not a pastor or anything like that. I'm actually a high school teacher.
Okay.
But yeah, I just want to encourage you to, I want to invite you to our church. I go to church just a few blocks from here. So.
Okay, what is the name?
New Life.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a card here.
Okay, yeah, definitely.